Hello and welcome to a brand new installment of Nintendo News Report for Thursday, June 27th, 2019. I'm Donald Terriel, 2 weeks removed from being freed from the hell that was E3. Joining me this week is a man who's still trying to find his Mario Maker 2 stylus, no thanks to Nintendo of America, Justin Berube.
Hello, everybody.
So, yeah, it's been a couple of weeks here, and we didn't do one last week, mostly because I was exhausted, and also we didn't really have a whole lot of news. So we're back this week. But before we get into the news and wrapping up what I saw in LA, Justin, you been playing much of anything as of late?
Cadence of Hyrule, I've been playing a little bit. Uh, I will say, when I started the game, I was very confused. The weapon they start you with uh, seems to make it hard to get into the game, but once I got the mace, everything kind of clicked, and I'm pretty far into the game now. I think I've done 3 dungeons. I think there's 4, and I've been exploring the map some and checking things out.
Yeah, I haven't had the time or money to actually pick this up here, but are the roguelike elements as bad as they are in most games? Like I missed my shot at the cheap Crypt of the Necrodancer, so I'll have to wait on that. But for somebody who'd mainly be coming in as a Link to the Past fan, this seems like a little bit much, even with the friendly mode that they included.
Yeah, I haven't tried the friendly mode, but honestly, I haven't played that many games in the type of genre, but I don't think it's that bad because when you die, I think you lose your money in maybe some of the items that break anyway. So it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, uh, because you could warp anywhere that you've been to throughout the map, and there's a lot of them are a bunch of like Sheikah Slate type things or something like that, and you can warp to any of those points, so you don't lose that much progress because, like I said, everything you really lose is either money, which you can get back up, or it's items that break anyway over time being used. Like one of them is like a torch. So if you're in a cave type area, which there seem to be like a lot of, you'll use the torch up just by exploring, and oftentimes find a replacement pretty quick anyway. So, and the same with like a shovel as well, where you can dig through walls. So it's not that big a deal when you die and lose everything because most of the time they're items you'll get back quickly anyway.
And have you had, like, how wildly different have the maps been if you had to put in multiple runs?
Well, the maps all stay the same. It's not
Oh,
a changing thing. It's the overworld is a lot like a traditional Zelda game where you can go to different screens and explore. So there isn't any randomness to the way the map is generated at all.
okay. Yeah.
So the puzzles are
So
all set up. There are puzzles and things of that nature throughout the map, but every area seems to have a rhythm that you have to tap out to when you move. But it usually seems to be almost the same rhythm for every area, so it's not that terribly different when you go to a different screen. But the music may be different.
yeah, that sounds about right. I'm hoping just with Mario Maker 2 coming out tomorrow, and most of my game money for this end of the month here is tied up a bit, but I'll I'll have to look into that here before Fire Emblem, because that's the next really big game for me.
Yeah, I'm not actually not too excited for Fire Emblem, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have more on that in a bit here. But the main thing I've been playing both while I was traveling and now that I'm back home here is actually Final Fantasy X. And somewhere Neil just chucked something out the window, but I actually roll credits on the game today, and I'm about 20% done with what I plan to do. Because I first played FF10 on the PS2 in like 2004, and it was at that point when I looked up FAQs for the game that I found out that the European version, sometimes the later versions of these PS2, PS1 RPGs will add new bosses. This one added about 10. All of and the culmination of which is a boss called Penance that has 12 million hit points, basically requires max stats to beat if you're not going to cheese the insta kill summon, and and you basically will have a 45-minute fight with them if you try to take them on. So I figured, you know what? I have the game on Switch. I can do this portably. Let's go for it. Let's see if I can beat Penance. And I've reached the end game. So at this point now, I need to go through and set up 3 characters with basically maximum stats in order to get to and beat Penance. And I've also got to get all their weapons unlocked, which I learned that yeah, the Switch is not probably not the best controller for this, but I did manage to beat the catcher chocobo minigame, which is like the second most annoying minigame in the whole thing, with the Switch and handheld mode. So if you're stuck on that one, try it with the just the Joy Cons for movement, and you might get through it. Uh, so now I've got to go through, catch a whole bunch of monsters. There's a monster catching element in this, and then basically grind out several hundred levels here to get the stats up to the point that I need. And so that's probably going to take me a couple of weeks of heavy work, but I hope to have that done before Fire Emblem. But
Well, good luck.
yeah, it's gonna. Thankfully, I have a long weekend this weekend, so I'll have plenty of time to sink into the catching and hopefully get started on doing the level grinding, which is pretty mindless as far as that goes. But yeah, that's pretty much all I did. Although, as if you heard the last episode of the show, you know I was in LA for E3, and Justin, I don't think the show's coming back next year, and if it is, it's probably
Really?
not going to have Nintendo in it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if it does come back, like if obviously with Sony and Microsoft both having new consoles next year, they may do something along those lines, or they may just take this opportunity to you know they have a theater right across the street from the LA Convention Center. They could book that for a fan fest for a few days, like have X20 in LA in June. Sony could have their PlayStation experience in June to give the public hands on with the PS5, and well, what would Nintendo really have to do at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I really wish Nintendo would kind of do their own convention and
Like a
invite themselves and third parties to show off their upcoming games, kind of like a BlizzCon type thing, but for Nintendo.
like a Space World.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But have it in the United States.
Yeah, because this year I tended to basically I tried to avoid the big crowds whenever possible. I didn't last very long at the Indie Mix event, for instance, on night 2, but I was actually able to go out on the floor on Thursday, which is the day that's open to the public all day, and I think I did 30 minutes in line for the Genesis Mini, and and the floor was it felt like a ghost town in there. Like I was expecting PAX levels on day 3, because that's the day that's, like I said, open to everybody for the full day instead of you having to wait a couple hours.
Yeah, my
For
guess is people started to give up on the show because E3, even without the public, would have some massive lines and a lot of waiting, and it's kind of frustrating at times when you're trying, especially if you're trying to get some work done, like you're with a site similar to NWR or with NWR, and you have to wait in line to play some of these games, and there's people in front of you who really don't have any business of being there. So, I mean, members of the public could get into E3 before the whole public thing. It just wasn't advertised as much and would cost more. So there are always people at E3 that probably shouldn't have been there. Uh, I used to be that type of person, sneaking in.
Mhm.
But then I started writing for sites, and yeah, I could see why it was a huge problem because a lot of people who have no business being there kind of get in the way of the people who are trying to get something done and do something more productive. But that's why one of the reasons I haven't gone to E3, I think since 2015, because the public being there is going to hinder what we as a site can get done. And NWR is not paying me to go or anything like that. This is a completely volunteer position. So it's a lot of money out of my pocket to fly out there and spend get a place to stay and to do all this work, you know.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
it's
really do miss it. I love going to E3, but I can't really say I like the direction that the show has been going in the last couple of years.
yeah, I think I spent about 700. I think between flights and the place we were staying at, I think I dropped about mm, $700 on this trip.
Hmm.
And I mean, I worked a vacation. I worked an actual vacation into it. Saw my family, got to go to an even bigger crowd when I happened to be in Toronto on the day of an NBA championship parade, which took about 5 hours to complete. But yeah, being in those kind of crowds, the one chance I thought I would have to go to actually be in Nintendo's booth outside of an appointment, I couldn't do that just because I had another appointment that I had to go to on that same day. And also I learned the hard way that if you're going as media, if you have an appointment at 12 noon, you're going to lose $20 because the food there is a complete ripoff. And if you're going as a member of the public next year, bring lots of cash because yeah, they've got a captive audience there. So if you're trying to get food at the convention, it's going to be through cost of that's going to be through the roof.
Oh yeah, food at the convention center does cost a lot. There are some places nearby you could go to that are a bit cheaper, but you have to leave the convention center. But a lot of times I wouldn't eat much at E3 at all. I would just go without eating till dinner some days. I'd eat breakfast, go to the show, and eat dinner.
Yeah, I did the yeah.
Let me ask you, Donald. Like in the past, I spent most of my time in the Nintendo booth, and I could wait in line to play most of the games and not have much of a problem. Uh, with the public there, I know Nintendo does their booth differently now, and there seems to be a longer queue to get into different things. Uh, if you were to like, I usually spent most of my time in the Nintendo booth, really going in depth on a lot of their demos. How hard would that be now with the new setup?
You would be waiting. I think our crew that didn't have to go to the appointment on the first day, I think they were in line for about an hour, and that's at the lightest point. Although there's most of the media is in there, it's not the public hasn't had a chance to queue yet. So you might have been able to do that on day 1 and 2 if you got there early enough. But just this year we had 5 people, and so we had to run. There was a lot of we had to go to appointments. So we
But was that 1 hour to play one game, and then you're basically
you
stuck without playing anything else?
like you'd have an hour for that was for the big stuff. I think Matt and Joe ended up going to try because they had a whole set of demo kiosks with a lot of the third party stuff
Hmm.
and some of the smaller stuff in there. And I think they ended up waiting in that same. It was about the same time because you could basically get a passport like it was at PAX. I know that's what they did with PAX a couple years ago. Like you had this passport, and you could have and that's where they played stuff like Hollow Knight, Silk Song, and Dead by Daylight. But
It just
but
sounds like more of a mess than what I'm used to.
yeah, but I mean next year it'll probably just be Death of the Wild anyway.
I really don't think it'll be only that game. The only reason I think they did that a few years ago was because the Wii U was dying and they wanted to kind of shift focus. And that game came out for both platforms, so it was worth putting all their eggs in that basket to really push that launch title that would end up coming to Switch.
And I think what gets me is like I didn't like most of the first party stuff that they were showing off. We had appointments for that. I was really hoping to play like Fire Emblem, Astral Chain, Mario Maker, and they saved all that for Treehouse. They didn't have demos for any of that
Yeah, I'm really
on the.
surprised they didn't have a demo for Mario Maker since it's coming out so soon. You'd think they want to kind of promote that more, especially if the public's going, just to say, hey, look, we got this coming out in a couple weeks. You'll have fun with it here. You should buy it. It seemed like
Although,
a missed marketing opportunity.
yeah, and last year didn't they have like you had to play Mario Tennis before you could play anything else, and that was coming out the next week.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand why Mario Maker wasn't playable at E3.
Yeah. So that was kind of the disappointment for me in the booth. Although I did get some good time with a couple of the third party booths. Like Sega had a free hour for Sega. Just check out more Mario and Sonic and the Genesis Mini. And we did the Xseed tour, and I got to hang out with with a friend of mine at Natsume. But yeah, the Nintendo booth was pretty much a wash for me outside of going to the appointments and playing the stuff that they were showing in those appointment areas.
Did you get any of the free goodies at Nintendo, Donald?
I got one Link's Awakening keychain, and I got the Luigi's Mansion pen light. I did not get the Pokemon pens.
Oh,
Then again, given the fact that I wrote the article calling out Game Freak for never really updating their games before, so I'd be surprised if they started now in regards to what are they calling it, Dexit?
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think I was going to be getting that one anyway.
Yes, Xander, a Luigi's Mansion pen light. Look it up.
A little flash. It's a little flashlight, basically. It can go on a keychain if necessary.
Yeah, I actually have a Luigi's Mansion original full size flashlight that when you turn it on, it shoots out the logo of the GameCube or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to fully test this new one here. Thankfully, I haven't had a chance to test it out yet.
Well, we'll need a full feature on that flashlight soon, Donald.
I'll get right on that. But yeah, that was E3. I don't think I'm gonna like. I'm probably not gonna go back next year, just because the travel from going just from where I am to LA is insane. And well, I also lost my freaking laptop charger on the plane. So that was a fun 2 days of being completely unproductive.
Yeah. I want to go back to E3. I just don't see it happening unless the show goes back to how it used to be.
Yeah, but I don't think the ESA can afford to bring it back to where it was. And I mean, there was talk before the show that they were going to sell out to the folks that run PAX, and at that point, it's a PAX Southwest. Except maybe they have a couple of media days before that.
What would they call it? PAX Premiere? Because that's where they expect a lot of games to premiere.
PAX PAX cubed. You got West, East, and you got to keep the three in there somewhere, I guess. All right, but we will talk again. Yeah, so we'll talk more about E3 again when we find out that it's actually happening, which will probably be April of next year, honestly, as far as Nintendo goes. But other news of the week. Well, the big one is going to be hitting in about an hour and 40 minutes if you're getting your game digitally. Mario Maker 2 comes out tomorrow. Reviews are out now, and seems to be there's a good game there. There's a few things missing. Neil has an article to that extent on the website, and early reports from Australia are suggesting that there's some internet issues, but we don't know if that's Australia or not.
Neil also has a video.
Yeah, yep, right here on this here YouTube channel, showing off showing off those same missing functions.
Yeah, I'm really upset about the mystery mushroom stuff. Probably more than anything else that's missing in this game. I love to use those costumes to kind of inspire me to create different levels. And it was also fun because you could be Little Mario and still break bricks, which you can't do in this game, I guess. So, yeah, I really miss those mystery mushrooms, and I hope they come back in DLC or something because they were a ton of fun, added a ton of personality to the game, and allowed you to kind of be creative with characters from other franchises, but kind of jam them into the Mario mix and make themed levels based on them. It was a lot of fun. I don't know why they get rid of that And with that, in the first Super Mario Maker, came some of the best amiibo support Nintendo's ever had. When you could scan almost every amiibo and unlock costumes. I, I'm baffled by the decision not to include them in this game, especially since they have a ton of the sprites already made. It seemed like a simple, for the most part, copy and paste job into this game.
Yeah, because I know they went for a lot of the weird licensed costumes after in the post-release support for the original Mario Maker.
Mm-hmm.
So they, I mean, they could have easily excluded that, but I wonder if there may have been something with all the new amiibo, like doing 8-bit versions of the champions from Breath of the Wild, or some more of the Fire Emblem stuff, since that's very technically not owned fully by Nintendo.
Well, yeah, but the fact is, I don't think it would be that hard to work out a deal for those. And even if there was, you could just introduce them over time with DLC or something like that as you work out the agreements, I guess, and just keeps the core Nintendo characters from the original Mario Maker in right now. I don't care about Shaun the Sheep or anything like that. So those costumes could have been thrown out, and I wouldn't be too upset.
Yeah, because it makes it really hard for you to do the follow up to your hit Metroid level from the first game.
I know. I was gonna try and remake that and improve it with new stuff, but I can't do that now. So I don't know what I'm gonna do because a lot of that design hinged on being small Mario, but still being able to break the bricks. And I'm sure I could work around that a bit, but it would be a pain, and it wouldn't be as fun. I don't think. And while there won't be any Luigi's Mansion amiibo, First for Figures has shared images of a Luigi's Mansion PVC, which is one of their more value-based lines. So it should cost you, I'm gonna guess, under $100 to get something like that.
How much for a Luigi?
I haven't seen any Luigi stuff.
Hmm. Although that would be a pretty simple design. It's basically just take the mold you're doing for Luigi and just go.
Yeah, just change the color. I wouldn't put it past First for Figures to do something like that, just to redo the design as Luigi. But we will see.
Also, Luigi for Smash, you can throw a Banjo and put him in there.
I'm actually okay with Banjo. I think he's the best paid DLC character so far. Banjo has good roots with Nintendo during the N64 days. Nintendo and Rare were so close together that Banjo was in a ton of Nintendo marketing as well. So to kind of see him back with that group of characters that he was always advertised with, it doesn't seem that out of place to me.
Hmm. Maybe it's because I never got into Banjo Kazooie until Nuts and Bolts came out that I'm thinking, okay, I don't see a car here. Where I know that Koopa Troopas has the car and he's pissed and all that, but where's my Banjo in a car for Smash?
Yeah,
If
to
you're
me
gonna
that's
do,
not Banjo, but I also only really like the first Banjo Kazooie. I think the sequel is pretty bad and has a lot of the problems that Donkey Kong 64 had. I feel like those games are more similarly related than the original Banjo Kazooie.
yeah, but hey, they gave me a Persona character and a Dragon Quest and several Dragon Quest characters. You know what? I can forgive Banjo Kazooie. Now, if Dante is the next DLC character, I may start inquiring about refunds for that season pass because the fact that he only became, eligible this week with a port of the remaster of a 20-year-old game would pretty rankle me pretty hard.
But that's Capcom, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I have a hard time seeing another Capcom representative being put in Smash Brothers right now.
yeah, because I mean we've got Sega Atlas, Square, and well Microsoft. Which if you said there was going to be a Microsoft character in Smash Brothers aside from Minecraft Steve, I would have laughed at you 6 months ago. But
And Platinum, Bayonetta.
Bayonetta, yeah. But I was thinking just from the existing like a new relation as far as these relationships go with the DLC. Like they've got two basically brand new third parties brought in for these. And hopefully they have a little bit more for Square Enix than what they've got for their first character in Smash.
Yeah, I want more first party Nintendo characters, but it doesn't look like any of this DLC is going to have them. So I'm really hoping there's a season 2 type thing that's just all first party Nintendo characters.
Yeah, I think Matt predicted that, and hopefully he's right, because I think there's still a few things, especially if they want to keep this game going beyond February 2020, when they said the last of the first set would be out. Although Pokepal in the chat brings up a good point: the Monster Hunter protagonist, or some sort of Monster Hunter playable representation in the game, considering we've got Rathalos already.
Yeah, I mean it is possible, but I just feel like Nintendo is not going to go back to Capcom for one of these DLC characters. They're going to want something new and fresh because every DLC character we've gotten is kind of a fresh character from a company we haven't seen any representation from. Well, I guess you have seen Square Enix, but it's from a huge franchise.
And a franchise that honestly has more Nintendo published games in the last 15 years than Banjo-Kazooie ever had.
Yep, that is true.
Although with Capcom, I mean, they've got so many options there that I like. Maybe they don't do Devil May Cry, or Monster Hunter, but maybe they do Resident Evil, which
Yeah,
is
they could do something like that.
give me clear, give me death. And Xander, I don't think we're getting the Dragonborn from Skyrim. I think that might be a bridge too far. Although I wouldn't mind Doom Guy, honestly. Oh, sorry, the Doom Slayer.
Yeah, I was a huge Doom fan growing up. That was a major game when it came out on PC. I still don't know if I want the Doom Slayer and Smash Brothers, but I don't know. I have no idea who else they're going to pick at this point. I got to think about it.
Maybe they go back to Bandai Namco and we get Yuri from Tales of Vesperia. Or maybe we get Miriam from Bloodstained. Oh, wait, that's not going too well on Switch, is it?
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, so for those who haven't heard, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night came out on Switch this week after coming out on the other platforms last week, and apparently the Switch version needs a little bit more time in the oven to run fully well. Early reports were fine, but it seems like once you get to the late game is when it really starts chugging, and this is a game that's already running at 30 frames to begin with, compared to the 60 that the PS4 and Xbox One versions and the PC version tried to get to and usually hit early on. But the game's publisher, 505 Games, has said that they are going to have a series of smaller patches to fix up the Switch version, and it's sort of their highest priority at this point. Which seems fair. They already delayed the game a week to try and get it to run a little bit better, and now they're going to be focusing on this one to try and get it up to at least a consistent frame rate for most of the game.
Yeah, and I hope they do it because I'd like to try the game, but I've been saying for a while the Bloodstained I was looking forward to most came out last year.
That's And for those who forget, that's Curse of the Moon, which is the Inti Creates developed to Castlevania 3 essentially.
Yeah, and that's really good.
I picked that up on sale. I still have to play it though.
I really like it, but I like the more traditional Castlevanias over the Metroid ripoff ones.
Yeah. So we'll yeah, I'm more of a class. The limited experience I have with Castlevania is mostly confined to the older ones, so that collection's probably more up my alley compared to what Bloodstained would be. And hey, if you want so you've got, although admittedly you do have Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon for the classic Castlevanias, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night once it gets working for the newer ones. And if you want a new Contra, they announced a release date this week for Blazing Chrome, which looks incredibly like Contra 3 and plays like it too, at least according to the reports we've gotten from people that have played the game early. That'll be out July 11th.
Sounds promising, especially since the actual new Contra coming to Switch doesn't look very good at all.
Can confirm. Yeah, that was the funnest demo of E3 just because it was the one that had the power failure in the middle of it.
But you could play as a panda, so maybe.
The panda didn't play too well. Maybe
Well,
I'll. Yeah, how do you botch playing as a panda? I mean, seriously.
yeah, Muscle March was able to get away with it.
Xander suggesting cadence. What is cadence for Smash?
I don't think so. I have a hard time believing there's going to be an indie character thrown in there just because they haven't been around long enough. If there was some sort of indie character that had more longevity, I feel like then they could maybe weasel their way into Smash eventually. But I think we're too early in that the whole indie thing to actually have that solid character ready to go.
Yeah, if you're looking at third-party indie characters at this point, I would have to think that Shantae and Shovel Knight would be the first two in line, and then maybe Cadence. Shantae, of course, because, well, she's been around since the Game Boy Color, so she's clearly got all kinds of longevity.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So the final news story of the week here. We got an announcement the other day from Sega and Ace Team, the people who developed the Xenoclash and Rock of Ages games, that they were bringing out a new game for Switch and other platforms next month, July 10th to be specific. And then we looked at it, and it's freaking ActRaiser. Like, finally, we've ripped off Super Metroid and Earthbound 20,000 times. Let's go to some more Super Nintendo games. Let's do ActRaiser over again, including having Yuzo Koshiro do the opening theme song.
Yeah, I've only briefly played ActRaiser, so I don't know too much about it.
Yeah, it's an early. I believe it is on the. If it's not on the SNES Classic, it really should have been.
I don't,
It's one
it's
of the.
not. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I know I've got it on mine, but I might have done some things with mine, so don't worry about me. But ActRaiser is a game that is equal parts 2D side scroller and simulation game, like SimCity, where you're trying to build a world up and save it from, an evil influence. And you have now this one seems to have thrown in a little bit of tower defense, but honestly, if you're going to do a modern ActRaiser, that kind of thing is probably going to be involved in it as well. And also, the writing for the game is actually done by the same guy who wrote the Talos Principle, which, as I recall, had a pretty interesting storyline. So, Soul Seraph is looking mighty fine.
Yeah, I know a bunch of people who are fans of the ActRaiser games, so congrats to them, and maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, Cherry Goblin. Wasn't there two ActRaiser games? No, there was not. There was just the one. Thank you.
Oh, I thought there were two.
There was a second one. They ditched all the simulation aspects of it and turned it into a straight action game. Um, NX maybe not all that good at action games until about the N64. So yeah, so we've got that to look forward to next week. Uh,
Oh yeah, another thing to look forward to tomorrow. Arcade Archives Clue Land is coming to Switch.
so that would be that, Justin. That would be your department.
Yeah, I mean I don't know too much about the arcade version of Clue Land, so hopefully I'll check that out and see what's different. I'm not that big on Clue Land to begin with. It's kind of a bizarre game.
Yeah, but it can't. I mean, it can't be any worse than Urban Champion. And I'm pretty sure it is also like the first playable female character in Nintendo history. Am I correct on that?
I'd have to think about that, Donald. I'd really have to think about that. But is Bubbles female?
I not sure. I seem to recall. I know there was a conversation. I think it was on Retronauts, like the one that came out last week about Clue Land, and I seem to recall that that's where I remember them saying that the playable character in Clue Land is female in the discussing it in the context of the NES version.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to check out the Clue Land manual. Maybe there's more details given there. But I don't know if the blue one also has a name. But Bubbles is also playable in one of those Donkey Kong King of Swing games as an unlockable character if you 100% it or something like that.
Uh, okay. Yeah, and apparent and Cherry Goblin reminds us that Clue Land is already on NES Online. I I mean, Clue Land has always seemed simple enough that maybe there's not much difference between the arcade and NES versions.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know, but from what I've seen, for the most part, with maybe one exception, most of the time the arcade versions of these games seems to be better than the NES versions. So I think in a lot of ways Nintendo's kind of not giving us these games to not ruin the NES's legacy, because a lot of the arcade versions are better versions of the NES games. It's kind of weird, but not in every case. There are exceptions, like I said. I can think of maybe one or two. One's more of a personal preference, maybe, but yeah.
All right, so that'll do it for this week. We would talk about the Nintendo shareholders meeting, but they said basically nothing about that. Aside from, yes, they acknowledged that the rumors of the various Switch revisions, but all they said was literally, "We're always developing new hardware." So nothing there.
Yeah, I really think there's going to be a Switch Mini or some new Switch in September.
So do they time it for Daemon X Machina, or do they time it for Link's Awakening, do you think?
Probably Link's Awakening. I think Daemon X Machina is going to crash and burn. I think it's going to do terrible.
Well, I'll probably pick it up. At least what I've heard of the improvements, it seems like a good one. And hey, those really weird Pro Controller style Joy Cons that Tori announced for the Switch that are designed for Daemon X Machina, that might be that I might have to pick those up too. God, September's going to be insane though. You've between the three Nintendo first party stuff, through Nintendo first party games, the Genesis Mini, and now if I'm going to get these things.
Yeah, that's with all this focus on September. That's why I really think that's when we're going to see the Switch Mini, and it would be good to hit ahead of the holidays a little bit and get people ready for Pokemon in November.
All right. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. If you're checking out the audio version, for plugs, of course, patreon.com/NWR. Support the site that supports us. Now with exclusive episodes of Radio Free Nintendo and the Talk Nintendo podcast, in addition to first crack at the audio version of this show. The first episode of RFN for the patrons, it James did yeoman's work on that episode, by the way, to get it to a presentable state. So definitely check that out. And I will have the pleasure of being on one of those soon. And I've got to find a way to make a wrestling podcast tax deductible on a Nintendo website, and I think I may be able to do it.
The No Mercy Memories podcast.
No, actually, it actually involves modern WWE, which I had the pleasure of telling the Wrestling Observer's Brian Rose about on the first night of E3.
All right.
Of course the mothership NintendoWorldReport.com, all sorts of news, reviews, previews. We still have E3 stuff going up there. I believe there's a couple that are in the editing room right now, actually. Also with Neil's Mario Maker takes, which includes a link to the video. And if you go back a couple of weeks, you can find my warning about expecting too much from Game Freak as it pertains to Pokemon Sword and Shield and moving in Pokemon that won't be there at the start. Of course, and of course, this here YouTube channel, youtube.com/NWRTV. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, etc., etc., etc. If you want to follow us on the socials, I am at NWR Donald, and Justin is at King Nintendo Fan. And as Xander reminds us, we also have some hot tunes from Super Mario Maker 2 right here on this YouTube channel. So once you're done with us, hop over there and check it out as well. But that's going to do it. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.
Good night, everybody, and keep bugging Nintendo for that mystery mushroom because I can't sleep until it's back.
That and the stylus.
Yeah, that too.
Hey, look at it this way. Nintendo of Europe started doing physical rewards on their My Nintendo this week, so maybe there's a chance.
Oh, so now I have to do all sorts of crazy things in apps to earn platinum coins. Great.